In the young Soviet state, hand-to-hand combat was an important field that was developed over several years to train the army, police, special services, and other members of state agencies. Hand-to-hand and bayonet fighting schools that had been used in the Tsarist police and other military and police forces were also used in this process. Over time, however, it became clear that new schools of hand-to-hand combat needed to be developed to compensate for the lack of knowledge and to teach people self-defense and apprehension skills. In 1924, a manual entitled Physical Training of the Workers' and Peasants' Red Army and Pre-Conscription Youth was published. This manual showed several techniques of French wrestling, as well as the technique of striking and pressing several pain points. In the end, this manual turned out to be of little use for real street fighting. That's when one of the first serious martial arts authors appeared on the horizon. In 1930, the USSR NKVD publishing house publishes the book Nevermind Belshina, The Art of Hand-to-Hand Fighting. At that time it was a very effective manual, as close as possible to a real street fight. The book quickly sold out and became popular among Cheka officers and policemen. However, soon this manual suddenly falls into the category of forbidden books. The book is withdrawn from stores and libraries and then destroyed. The author of the book, as a result of false accusations, was repressed and exiled to Kazakhstan. Nil Oznobishin, despite his noble origins, higher education, and knowledge of 5 foreign languages, preferred to work in a circus with a troupe of foreign artists. He traveled to many countries. His second passion was boxing. The young man tried not to miss all the boxing matches. He was busy organizing fights, and in 1915 he himself took part in the first Moscow Boxing Championship. In the 20s in the Soviet Union, the number of registered crimes increases. There is an unfavorable criminal situation. It was this circumstance that prompted Oznobishin to pay attention to hand-to-hand fighting. In addition, at that time the young man already had experience of street fights from which he did not always come out the winner. Oznobishin carefully studied and analyzed the techniques and methods of attack by criminal elements. He noticed that his favorite methods of street fights were headbutts to the face, blows with a small canvas bag filled with sand, finger blows to the eyes, and the use of cold weapons. The young man realized that knowledge of classical boxing would not help in such cases to defend himself. After that, he decides to publish his own manual on hand-to-hand combat, the result being the book The Art of Hand-to-Hand Combat. In it, Oznobishin criticizes the popular fascination with self-defense. He believes that the recognized self-defense systems of England and France have nothing to do with the usual street fighting and, moreover, are of little use in real situations. According to Oznobishin, teachers of English boxing, who released their self-defense techniques, do not want to recognize that a kick with a foot shoe is much more dangerous and stronger than a hand punch. Oznobishin attends a soccer game and, after studying the injury statistics of soccer players, which confirms that players very often suffer leg fractures due to leg kicks and lose consciousness after kicks to the pain points of the feet, Oznobishin further comments on the Japanese art of jiu-jitsu hand-to-hand combat. He believes that the growing popularity of jiu-jitsu can only be considered one element of self-defense. In his opinion, jiu-jitsu instructors do not aspire to a real combat environment at all. They give a good physical workout, but do not teach how to fight. The author of the new method decides to combine in a single system the most suitable techniques for street fighting, which are in English and French boxing, in jiu-jitsu, as well as in French and freestyle American wrestling, supplementing all this with firearms techniques. It was the only allowance based on the practice of street fights. Nil Oznobishin practiced the yard hooligan point of view, winning the fight at any cost and by any means, bringing the opponent to his helpless state. At that time, this book created a real sensation. Oznobishin denied such a concept as necessary defense or exceeding the limits of necessary defense. He believed that such concepts simply did not exist in street fights. He drew his conclusions from reality and his knowledge of criminal psychology. Oznobishin often entered into discussions with those who studied Japanese martial arts, practicing pressure on the painful points of the opponent. Nil Nikolaevich said that in the Soviet Union, due to climatic features, the population wears warm clothes most of the year and therefore the Eastern techniques of pressing on the painful nerve endings are simply useless here. Oznobishin attached particular importance to the distance between the opponents. If it was big enough, in his opinion, you should have simply used a revolver and not pretended to be a master of martial arts. Neil Nikolaevich practiced lightning fire without aiming. Some experts believe that a similar technique may have been the basis for the Macedonian firing used by the SMERSH staff. If the enemy found himself at a closer distance, Osnabishin read that leg kicks would be most effective for this. Osnabishin suggested using the French martial art of sabot, in which kicks were adapted for fighting in heavy shoes with tight soles. The next fighting distance was the fist-punching distance. Osnabishin believed that in such a case the techniques of Old English boxing were excellent. If the opponent approached at a closer distance, it was possible to use elbow or knee strikes. At close combat distance, Osnabishin practiced jiu-jitsu techniques. The last combat distance was the fight lying on the ground. Here the author practiced backyard hooligan techniques, such as throwing a handful of sand or earth into the eyes of his opponent. At the end of the book were detailed techniques for apprehending and convoying criminal elements. Osnabishin read that his manual would be useful not only to police school teachers, but also to ordinary citizens. According to one version, the Soviet secret services thought that the techniques in this manual could be used against them and police officers who had not yet been properly trained. Therefore, the entire circulation of the book was confiscated from libraries and stores and destroyed. All subsequent combat manuals were issued under the seal for NKVD officers only. Some experts believe that Viktor Spiridonov was behind the destruction of all Osnabishin's books. He was one of the founders of Sambo, his school of self-defense was clearly losing, and Osnabishin treated his competitor Spiridonov very painfully. He made sure that it was his system of hand-to-hand combat that was taken for the training of the workers and peasants' militia and special services. Osnabishin was forbidden to teach his system of hand-to-hand combat. He was only used as a consultant at the Moscow militia school. For a long time Neil Nikolaevich could not accept the fact that he was not allowed to implement his ideas and his school of martial arts. After a severe depression, Osnabishin became addicted to alcohol, divorced his wife, and was effectively left homeless. He earned his living by translating literature for the Institute of Physical Education. In 1941, Osnabishin was arrested for allegedly conducting defeatist conversations and maintaining contacts with the Germans. He was convicted and sent to the Saratov prison, after which he was exiled to Kazakhstan and nothing is known about his fate. I thank you for watching. Your support is very important to me. Your comments and thumbs up motivate me to release new videos on interesting topics. Subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the new videos.